All right, we're back. We're back. Okay, hopefully, as we're going through this, you're starting to think a little bit about, okay, what does this mean to supply chain management? And that's really the point of this. And this is all going to come home for you when you get to the final project in this course, and you realize that it is as much as anything else a strategy case as it is a cost-driven case. So as you start to, when we get to the case, you're going to see that that you're going to have to make some decisions about production, and it's going to be a lot based on what you think the company's strategy should be before you decide which choice you make. Okay, so let's move on. The next analytical tool I want to show you is called the Growth Share Matrix. It is often called the Boston Consulting Group Matrix because that's cleverly called that because it was developed by the Boston Consulting Group. This goes back at least to the 80s and probably to the 70s. I'd have to do a little homework to know the origins. But you'll also see it called BCG for Boston Consulting Group. So all of these are different names, but it's really an analysis that looks at the market and it looks at each of your products and how they fit into the market. And it gives each a name. So if you are in a market that is growing a lot and you have a high market share, those products are called stars. If you are in a market that is growing, but you don't have much market share, that product is typically called a question mark. You don't know how successful you're going to be. You want to move it into that star category, but it isn't there now. If you have a product that is in a low growth market, but you have a dominant market share, that's called a cash cow. We'll talk about cash cows in a minute. And then finally, if you have a product where your market share is low and the market's not growing, that product is considered a dog. Now, when I do this in class and I draw this on the board, believe me, I do not draw very well. So I can make the star and I can make the question mark, but I just put the words moo and bow wow in the cash cow and dog category. Okay, so a little bit more depth on here, and I can zoom in on these in the next few. So let's look at them. Stars, that's that high market share, high market growth. You're well established, and these are great opportunities. You're established, you're profitable, you're leading the market. You don't have to do anything except you want to keep investing and growing there. Cash cows, on the other hand, if the market's not growing, your opportunities to grow are very, very limited, but you're profitable. And so what you want to do is milk that cow as long as you can. The question marks, you got the opportunities, but you don't know how to move it necessarily, and you have to develop a strategy to move into that category because this is not a high profit category where you are now. You have the dominant players in the market are setting pricing, and so there's a few ways you can go with this. We'll talk about different kinds of strategies. And then the dogs, hey, you know what? It's going to be really, really tough to make a product. You're probably going to liquidate in this particular area. You're probably going to get out of it. This is another way of looking at it. Your question marks are going to consume a lot of cash. You don't get a lot of return. These are they can be problem children. They can be money losers, and so those are the characteristics. Whereas a star is generating the most cash. If you're the first one into the market, you're almost like a monopoly, at least until others get in there. You consume a lot of cash, but you're generating a lot of cash, and you at least want to generate as much as, if not more, than you have incoming. What you really want to do as a star is you want to make it really, really hard for anybody else to even want to come into the market. The cash cow, you have the high market share. You just want to only invest to maintain. This is definitely a maintenance. You don't have to retrench, but you have to maintain, and you want to keep the current level of productivity. We'll talk about some examples of this in a moment. And then the dog, obviously, you just want to get out of that business, unless you see a way to move it along here, you're going to get out of that business. And there may not be a way to do that. May have been a bad idea in a market that didn't catch on. There's lots of possibilities for how that happens. So, and this is, I like this because it has the arrows that show you, here's where the cash flow goes. So for instance, if you take your cash cow businesses, they're generating cash, they're not going to grow. You use that money to invest in your stars, or you use that money to invest in your question marks so that you can move them into the star category. Whereas, what do you do with the money in the dog category? You divest. If you can find a buyer, cool, let them have it. If you can't find a buyer, shut down the business. Here's an example, L'Oreal, and I found this, just doing classroom prep. And I'm sure you've all seen ads for it. Are any of you users of L'Oreal products? I think it's unlikely that the guys are. Clarissa?
No, my wife's got Mary Kay.
Oh, okay. So you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Nobody in your house is allowed to.
Yeah.
Josefina or Clarissa, because it's more likely to be a women's products. Do either of you? Are you familiar with their product lines?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, this is kind of their, as they look at it, they have this whole Lux line here, but then they have their cosmetic division, consumer products, and professional products. So, and professional products is what they would sell to a stylist shop or something like that. Now, if you started to look at their portfolio, consumer products is the biggest part, the Lux Group is the second, and then professional products third, and active cosmetics fourth. But now as you go look at this and you start looking at some of these categories in consumer products, got a cramp, I had to stretch out. But as you look at them, where's the growth? What's the growing markets? We're looking at growth share here. So what are the growing markets? What's your fastest growth? Come on, you guys, you can get this. What's the fastest growing market?
Skincare.
Skincare is number 2 or number 3.
Makeup.
Makeup is number 2. What's number 1?
Hair color.
Hair color, yeah. Okay, now let's look at their market share in skincare. What's their market share?
3.1 billion.
Well, yeah, it's actually 31.6 billion. So they're big. They're the biggest because their next biggest rival is 24. So they don't give a percentage share here. They just give the rival. So they're number 1 in skincare, and it's a growing market. What category do we have there? In growth share, where's that going to be?
That's the star, yeah?
That's a star, yep. Same thing, makeup. It looks like they're number 2 behind Procter & Gamble. Growing market. What are we looking at here? I think we're looking at Star again, aren't we? It's one of the biggest players in a growing market. We go down and look at hair color. They have 9% of the market, which might be bigger than their next biggest rival, or that might be their rival, but 9% of the market, and it's the fastest growing market of any of their product lines. Where are they?
That'd be a question mark.
Absolutely, that's a question mark. Now, if we look at some of the others, hair care, small percentage of the market. Market's not growing that much. What are we looking at here?
Cash cow.
I don't even think so. We may be looking at a dog here. Same thing with hair color. So let's sort of see how L'Oreal saw it. And as you can see, yeah, they had the hair care and the fragrances in the dog category. They put makeup in the, right here in the, maybe we're in there, maybe we're not. But hair color, skincare, they were right up there. And that's how they looked at it. So then you can start developing strategies. Now, you may develop a strategy for the whole company and how it addresses all products. You may just as well, and you probably will be developing individual strategies for each product line and be looking at it. So that's how this works. So let's do some of our own product evaluation. So let's look at a few and let's kind of just chime in and I want you to start thinking about how this is going to apply to supply chain management. So let's just say, where would we place it on the matrix? What kind of marketing strategies might we use for it at that point? And what does the strategy mean to supply chain management? So let's take an example, laptop computers. What do you think? Market for laptops growing, stable, declining?
I'd say stable.
Stable at best, yeah. Remember we talked in the Porter's Grand Strategies about substitutes? What are some of the substitutes for laptop computers?
A tablet.
Tablets, yeah. Tablets are a big substitute for them. If you use a Chromebook, yeah, a Chromebook is a kind of a tablet. If you use a Chromebook, what's the difference between your Chromebook and the laptop? What's the big difference?
Size.
It could be the size, yeah. You can get a small laptop, I suppose, but the size of it. So for some people, the keyboard size is going to matter. I mean, I use a Chromebook instead of other tablets because I need that full keyboard. My hands just don't work on anything else.
I want to say the gigabytes and stuff, the memory.
Yeah, so there's some memory capabilities that come into play there that can be a factor. Anything else?
The operating system itself.
Well, it is the operating system, but the biggie is that that nothing is stored on the tablet. It's all cloud storage. So everything you access and everything you store is going to be on the cloud. I suppose you could plug in a thumb drive and you could do it that way, but by and large, that's the way it's going to be. So would that have been a feasible would a Chromebook have been a feasible substitute for a laptop 6-7 years ago?
No.
No, but now we have the bandwidth, so you get the responsiveness. Now the cloud services of various kinds have grown tremendously. So you don't have storage woes or anything like that, and it's cheap. I mean, you get a free Google account. You're storing everything in the cloud, and it doesn't cost you anything, except to know that Google's tracking your every move. So this is what makes this a slow growth market, is because as we talked about Porter and the forces, the substitutes are here for laptop computers. So is it a profitable product? Probably. The prices have come down, but it's a profitable product. So where would you put it on that growth share matrix?
Question mark.
A question mark would be in a growing market, though.
Oh.
I think you're on the right track, though.
I'd put it in the middle between the question on the line on the axis, as if it was between the star and the question.
Is there anybody who thinks it's a cash cow? Because that's what I think it is. I think if you look at Dell as an example, who sells a lot of laptop computers, they can sell them profitably. They can make them profitably. They can distribute them, but it's not a huge growing market anymore. And so, for them, it's what's my next generation product line, and Dell is selling all it. If we talked about it like that and said this, you use the cash cow to fuel what else you're doing, Dell has invested heavily in acquiring storage companies over the last 5 years. They bought Repellent and they bought another one on the high end. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But so they're doing a lot with storage. instead of computing power. And so, that's their work in the market. But that's one where you'd probably look at it as a cash cow, I think. And you probably would, as you look at it like this, your growth strategy is going to be, and you look at some of these, it's really going to be using the cash cow to fuel your stars and your question marks to make them into stars. And so your generic strategies are probably going to be in this cost leadership area. You're not really trying to differentiate a lot. You're not trying to say Dell does all these things that nobody else does with a laptop. They all pretty much do the same thing. They run Windows and they do the same thing, unless you're looking at a MacBook, which is going to run the Mac operating system, but it's going to do all the same things. So you're no longer trying to differentiate your product. What you're trying to do is just make as much money off it as you can while you still can. How about tablets? So if we look at a tablet like an iPad, where would you put it?
That would be a star.
Yeah, I think it's still a star. I think it's still there.
It's very limited what you can do with the tablet. You're very limited on what you can do.
Yeah. So if you were going to invest in your iPad product line, what would you want it to do?
I know the biggest one's the e-readers.
Yeah. So e-readers would be a big part of it. Yeah. Certainly, you would want accessories that make it usable as a laptop alternative. So, the keyboards and all those kinds of things that they have for them is useful. Possibly even Bluetooth it into a TV monitor, which you can do, and then you basically you have a computer.
I was going to say you probably want to do like the live streaming networks now.
Yeah, especially with the 5G rollout, you can make it. You want to make it a 5G product, and then does that mean that you want people to be able to talk on their tablet just like they talk on their iPhone?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think you might be looking now at a strategy that says, if I can give you one phone number and whichever device you happen to be using at the moment is the one that you can use as your telephone, that would be a good thing. So you might want to enable it for that. But then when you're saying, I think I have a star and I want to continue to invest in this product, that's what you're doing, is you're continuing to develop the product, make it more attractive, give people reasons to buy the next one, until such time as it is no longer in a growing market, and then it moves into that cash cow category for you, and you just want to continue to sell them as long as you can and use that to fuel what's next. So what's next for Apple? Clearly, they haven't stopped investing in the iPhone, right? So that's also in the star category. So if you're going to grow that, what are you going to do? And we have that threat. We identified that threat earlier of phone plans going away.
Increased capability?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this may be what drives the tablet, the iPad, into cash cow territory. That now, if you can do the same thing with this, that you can Bluetooth it into your into a monitor screen of any kind, including a big screen TV, and you're 5G capable, so you can pass through data at high speeds, and you can have a keyboard remotely attached to it. That maybe that's what's going to drive your tablet into the cash cow category. There's an old adage: you hate to face a cannibal, someone who's going to come in and eat you, but if you have to, it might as well be yourself. Yeah. So if one of your own products takes out another one of your product, that's maybe a best case scenario for them. So this could be, this could have strategies as well, but it's going to have star strategies. Where's this one? Where's the Apple Watch?
I know they still haven't really like, I'd probably say a star.
I don't know, maybe a question mark still?
Yeah, it's hard to say because the market may still be in low growth mode. It appears to be taking off. I know a lot more people with Apple Watches than I used to know. Uh, and oddly enough, where it's really getting traction? Who usually adopts technology as an age group?
The younger generation.
Younger generation. You know who's adopting Apple Watches a lot? The older generation. Anybody want to guess why?
They
I
can
want to say
use
because of
Apple
the
Pay.
Fitbits.
It
They
can
can
use
use
Apple
Apple
Pay.
Pay without pulling out their phone.
Yeah, so you don't have to do that. What else?
I was saying that the with some of the stuff you can do on like the heart monitor and stuff like that, the health stuff.
That's it. Yep, that's it. It'll monitor your vital signs for you.
You can't really lose it very easily either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Where's my keys?
Facts.
So yeah, it's getting more traction, or it's getting a lot of traction among older people because they're saying, yeah, I can put it on, and then when my heart starts to get out of control, I get an early warning here. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I would think the market may be at the point where we're starting to say that the growth rate is high. But if you don't have to back up too far to say that the growth rate of the market was low, even though Apple had a big part of the market, and as a result, that it would have been a question mark.
You can't use a defibrillator yet.
Yeah, you can't yet, but maybe that's the next attachment to the tablet. So you have, you can see how you start to do the analysis on the product. How about this one? Artificial knee. Oh, how did that happen? How did I get that? Oh, I know why. Because that's something for the baby boomers. So is this a high growth industry?
I say absolutely. I say it's a cash money in the next few years, especially with the baby boomers.
Yep, it is. It is, and this is a local industry. In Kosciuszko County, just south of Elkhart County, there are medical equipment and artificial joint manufacturers in a big way. So it's an important industry in our area. And yes, the baby boomers, people born from 44 to 64, are moving into that age group where they're getting joint replacement surgery. Or many of them are already there, and many of my friends have already had it. I am proud to say I still have all original parts, but many of my friends cannot say that. So now, yeah, you're in a star, potentially a star category if you have market share in this, and it's going to be that way until all of these people born in 64, and then we start to taper off. Then the next generation is a little lower, and then you're going to see the market growth go down. On the other hand, with the emergence of medical technology, you may just as well see all kinds of additional joints. We think of knees and hips, and of course artificial hearts and things like that. But what else is we're going to see artificial digits of various kinds. What are we going to see that may continue to roll out products that get into that star category quickly? Is it easy for people, is it, when we talk about threats, is it easy for others to get into the business?
I don't
No,
think
not really.
No, huge investment to get in there. So it's.
I know it's a lot of regulation, especially with the government.
Yeah. So let's see. I know what we're looking at here. We're looking at basically a trash business. In this case, I'm thinking Michiana Disposal, and they're big into recycling. So they, more than almost any company, they're going to be a recycling company rather than a waste treatment company. Is that a growth industry?
Yeah, I see a lot more people pushing towards recycling over regular disposal.
Yeah. So where is the emphasis? Is there a generation that cares more than all others about recycling?
The youngest generation.
Well, the youngest, and it really starts with millennials and works its way from there. So yes, it's going to be around for a long time because it's important to the people who are going to be around for a long time. So yep, it's a growth industry. And so you're going to want to be looking at ways to expand and to go in there. You're going to fall into that star category. Nuvia is one. They make chips for high performance computers. So as you look at it, what do you know about the chip market?
It is very competitive.
It is extremely competitive. Who are the big players in there?
AMD and Intel.
AMD and Intel, yep. And those two are dominant in the market, and they are extremely competitive with each other. AMD is always trying to one-up Intel, and every time they do, Intel fights back with some new development on their chips. And chip capacity, chip capability seems to double every few years. So it's a growing market. Now, Nuvia has a specialty chip that is aimed at high performance servers. When we've talked about technology, where do those high performance servers go now?
Data processing centers.
Yeah, big centers and cloud computing providers. Cloud computing, a growth market?
Yes.
So if Nuvia has a chip that is really good for really high-end processors, do they have a viable product potentially?
I'd say so.
Do they have a big share of the market?
Not necessarily.
No. So where are they going to fall in there? We know the chip market's growing. We know that the need for high-end computers is growing. They have a specialty, but they have a low market share. Where do they fall?
Question mark.
They're clearly in the question mark. So their growth strategy, they want a growth strategy. They need to get into expansion. They need to get share, and that may mean some pricing concessions that they don't want to make. It may mean that instead of being the typical corporation that wants its capital investments back in 2 years, they may be looking out 5 to 7 years before they recoup all their investments. So, that's how basically where this product lands in here is going to drive their strategy. How about Target? Where would you put Target?
I would put Target as a cash cow, even though they're probably like third, I'd say.
Yep. And so if a cash cow invests in other product lines, where do you think Target's going to invest?
Like you said earlier, they're investing in like the online business.
Yeah.
With the
And if you
Go
looked at Target's online business and you said, well, they're in the same market that we know is growing because we've lived it for the last year, but you're in a growing market and Amazon's there and Walmart's there, where would you put Target?
I'd probably put them three.
Yeah.
3 or 4.
3 or 4. So they are probably where? And maybe in that question mark trying to move into star? Does that make sense to everybody?
I think that they were a question mark, but I don't think they're going to overtake to Amazon or Walmart.
Yeah, but they might be able to move into that star category by increasing their market
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah. What would you do if you now let's think like strategists now. So okay, so we know we're in that question mark category. We want to get to star. What are you going to do? What kinds of decisions might you make? Where can you succeed where others can't?
Lower cost membership for online deliveries.
Yeah, so maybe you're not as expensive as Prime, or I forget what Walmart calls their new Prime equivalent, but they have one too. So that could be one.
I know I know Target has been remodeling their stores, and they've been putting the Disney and the Alter, the makeup
Mhm.
cosmetics in their stores. So that would be definitely a leg up on them too.
So they might be able to do something with their retail space. Do they have an opportunity to combine retail and online? The traditional retail and online.
Yeah.
Can they do
Absolutely.
it? Can Walmart do the same?
I believe that Walmart already is.
Yep, well, Walmart already
Yeah.
does. Can Amazon do the same?
Yeah, they've
No,
already
but they're
been.
trying.
They're trying, yeah. They own Whole
Yeah.
Foods. They own Whole Foods, and they're trying to do some things with there, and they're trying to do some other partnerships, like with CVS. So they're trying to get there. So if you're a strategist for Target, what can you do that those other two might not be able to do?
That's a
Uh,
good question.
exclusive items.
Yeah, you might be able to do some exclusive items. You might be able to get some product lines, some specialty product lines, some brand names that only they sell. And I would suggest that you might be able to make a combined online and retail shopping experience. First of all, you can make your shopping experience better than the Walmart shopping experience. I think that's certainly an opportunity for them. If you were doing SWOT on this and you were saying, what are my opportunities? That would be one I can do, is I can say, I can make my shopping experience better. But if you combine it, when you shop for food online, and this is for anybody can chime in here. If you're shopping for food online, what are your concerns about it?
My first concern is the spoilage.
Yeah, it could be spoilage. Yeah, how long's it been on the shelves?
Where the food came from.
Okay, and we talked about blockchain and the ability to chase that back to source. What are you willing to let
I know
someone
one
else?
thing that
What are you willing
Target,
to let someone else pick for you? And is there anything you're not willing to let someone else pick for you?
I want to say fruits,
Yeah, I think
vegetables.
there are there's a certain part of the market that I want to choose my own meat and produce. But I don't care. You get a gallon of milk off the shelf. I don't care. You can get a box of cereal or a can of soup off the shelf. I don't care. Just take any one. You can take anything you got. I'll tell you what flavor and what brand I want, but does anybody examine, the chicken noodle soup from Campbell's, one can to the next?
Not really.
No, nobody does.
Not really.
Unless there's a damaged can, no, you're not going to examine it. So what I'm
Hey,
thinking
can I
for
ask?
them, go ahead.
One of the things I was just thinking, I know the Valpo Target does not have a very good produce section or a meat selection. So that would be one that they could probably maybe expand into, because I know they have a lot of the younger generation that likes the organic foods.
Sure.
That would be one I think that they could definitely get into, because I know Stratton Van Tills has, they've really market that organic line. It's really paid off for them.
Yeah. So you could imagine a shopping experience that goes like this. Order everything that you want, that you're willing to let us pick. Come into the store, go into the produce section in the meat department and pick out what you want, and we'll meet you at the checkout line with the rest of your order.
That'd be
Is
a pretty
that
good strategy.
is that something that you can do, and that you might be able to do better as Target, certainly than Amazon can right now, and you might be able to do it better than Walmart too, because Walmart is not, while a lot of people buy their meat and produce at Walmart, it is not known for the picky person's meat and produce supplier. So this is what I mean when you start looking at where your strengths and weaknesses are, and when you start looking at these different kinds of strategies that you have, that these are the things that you can do as a strategist. And as you start considering these kinds of choices, and maybe you're going to test pilot some of them, and maybe you're going to try different things, you're all the while thinking, okay, I'm the supply chain manager. If we do X, I have to do Y. If we do A, I have to do B. And if you're pursuing a cost strategy versus a specialization strategy, it's going to change the way you do supply chains. And we're going to talk more about that on Thursday. Let's do Utilimaster. Is anybody familiar with Utilimaster? Utilimaster is in Elkhart County. They're in Bristol, and they make they just get the chassis in, as you can see on the left, and on the right you can see that they make delivery trucks, and they make them for Amazon, they make them for FedEx, they make them for the post office, they make them for Cintas, all kind of UPS, all kinds of different businesses. It's a really, big time business. And each one is customized to the client specifications, and it's organized in a way so that, perhaps an Amazon delivery truck might be handled differently from Cintas. Cintas is in the business of delivering uniforms for its customers. So, you can, if you work at a place that requires you to wear a uniform, the company actually owns them, and they pick them up and clean them, and they're constantly doing a cycle through on the clean versus the old stuff that goes back in for cleaning and repair, and they make sure that all your employees look great and they're ready to go. A smaller business like Zyker Cleaners does the same kind of business. So you see that now. So where would you put building delivery vans on the growth share matrix?
I would put it as a star or maybe a cash cow, because that's the new where everybody's wanting to go is the deliveries.
Yeah. So it's a growing market. It's not going to be a cash cow because it's a growing market. So it's a star or a question mark depending on your market share, right?
Right.
And so what's going to be your growth strategy?
Refining production process.
Oh yeah. You're gonna do whatever you can to be able to crank out more, to make your quality great. Those are the kinds of things that you're going to do. You're going to invest in your product line, and you're going to invest real heavily in signing up new clients.
One of the things I know that a lot of delivery companies like Amazon and are always looking for better fuel cars.
Yeah,
I know
so
they're
you
wanting
may
to go
you may be very much investing in alternative fuels and in electrics. You could, although it doesn't seem to be getting much traction, you could invest in natural gas, which the South Bend bus system, the Transpo system, is doing. All of their stuff runs on natural gas, so it's doable. But you have to have your own place to fill them up, because you can't find them out in the world very much. I think the closest to South Bend is either the Chicago area or Grand Rapids.
I would say maybe starting to include higher quality navigation systems in the vehicles.
Yeah, and in fact, that's something I learned about Amazon, is how they work. They don't drive down the road looking for your address. Their GPS, their proprietary system uses GPS to tell you when to stop. You're here, deliver it. Which is why on occasion my Amazon packages go to one of my neighbors' homes. So yeah, so navigation is important. Especially navigation in ways that will maximize the value of a driver's trip. So yeah, you get the idea. Okay, so now it's time to get serious. We've done all this identification, and in the last 15 minutes of the day, I'm going to just kind of go through, okay, what do we do next? And so, this is going to be, we're going to get into tactical planning. We're going to start talking about, okay, we have the data, we have the direction, we have the guidance. And we're going to get more specific. We're going to focus not on the next 3 years or 3 to 5 years, but instead we're going to focus on the next year, the next 6 months. Tactical planning is okay. This is where we roll up our sleeves and say, what are we going to actually do? It's the how we're going to get there. And as you do, you start getting into, and then you move into operational planning. And so, operational planning includes supply chain planning. So you start saying, okay, you're gonna start getting at the department base. What are the important tactics? What are our, we're gonna get real granular with our goals, because in operational, we're gonna start saying, what do we do? What do we measure day in and day out? How do we know what our progress is? How do we implement the initiatives? What do we have to do differently? And that's really the operational part of the plan. And then on Thursday, we're going to spend a lot of time then on supply chain strategy and how that supports everything else that we've discussed today. So this is going to be, and here's just some examples. As you start looking at your infrastructure, you're going to look at your technology infrastructure. You're going to look at your end-to-end supply chain. You're going to be very concerned about customer service levels, and you're going to have flexibility for growth. Now, if you're in a market, it may be that you decide I'm never going to not dominate a market, but if I carve out a niche of the market, I can be the dominant player in that. So as we discussed with Target, maybe they're never going to be a dominant player versus Amazon and Walmart, but maybe they can build something for the people who they want the convenience of online, but they want to be able to pick out certain products on their own. And maybe I can build a structure for that niche market, and everything I do is going to be to service them. Then that's going to speak to what my customer service levels are versus an Amazon customer service level. Can you go into Amazon, or can you call up Amazon and get service?
It's very hard.
Yeah, who's ever needed customer service from Amazon?
I have.
How'd you
I
get it?
have too, and
It's a nightmare.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, you're sending messages back and forth, right? Whereas if we were to look at a Zappos, which actually Amazon owns now, but you're going to look at Zappos, which started out as a shoe seller, but now sells a lot of apparel type of products of various kinds. They put their 800 number right up on top of their website. They want you to call them. They're one of the ultimate service companies. And I also want to make mention for human resources strategies that they're important as well, because this is going to be a big enabler of the corporate vision. And then as you develop your operational and supply chain strategies, this is going to start speaking to what kind of people do we need to make this happen? What kind of leaders do we need to make this happen? What type of a work environment do we need to make this happen? And the work environment, again, it's going to be different if you're a specialty producer versus if you are a high quantity, low cost producer. And everybody has to understand that, and you want to profile people in the right ways so that they will thrive there, because turnover will kill you. Once you get everybody on the same page, I'm going to talk a little bit about goals, because there is a process called that has had, it kind of goes in and out, but MBO, management by objective, is pretty common, where you have the corporate objectives, and then you start getting to department and individual objectives that are supposed to support that. And then you monitor, evaluate, and reward. You build rewards around that. That could be bonuses, that could be other kinds of rewards, paid time off, etc. Now Deming was a big fan of goals, but it always had to be it had to be in a continuous feedback mode. It had to be built around continuous improvement. So your goals were improvement, not necessarily, if I sell X this year, I get a bonus, because I can sell more stuff depending on how much pricing flexibility I have. But that may not be a good thing if my production group can't fulfill the sale, because I sold a big deal and I didn't involve them in the process. So you have this MBO and it has some pitfalls and it has some benefits. So what you worry about is you worry about everybody losing the big picture. Because I'm so worried about my goals. I'm so worried about my selling that I don't bother with getting my getting my production team on board and making sure they're geared up to be able to handle it. So you kind of lose the focus. You're worried about yourself. You worry about micromanagement. That when I start to panic if I'm an operations manager, I start to panic when I realize I'm not going to make my numbers, and so now I become a micromanaging tyrant for the last 3 months of the year because I really want my bonus. So you start getting those issues. On the other hand, you can involve the entire workforce. You can break things up into manageable pieces, and it's a way of tracking progress. So you have that. You just have to worry about it. This is from Deming's Out of the Crisis, and really the point of this is, and I think this really speaks to the what you need to overcome with an MBO program, is that you have to look at the entire organization. You have to look at the entire supply chain, because if I'm going to optimize production, is distribution going to be able to handle it? If I'm going to get if I have a goal in procurement of getting the least expensive products because I'm in a low cost mode, am I going to be buying a lot of crap that my production people have to deal with, and they have a lot of scrap? So this is why it's really important, and this is what I love about teaching supply chain management, is we do look at the whole thing. We look start to finish. And it's really important that we be able to do that because we understand the impact of what I do in my daily work on the rest of the company. And so you don't want to let your MBO program, your management by objective program, to violate this kind of thinking. Another Deming quote: numerical goals set for other people without a roadmap to reach the goal have effects opposite to the effects sought. So this is a common problem in the planning process and in the strategic planning process, that you get a goal from on high that says we're going to grow 10% a year. Well, if you don't have a roadmap for how you're going to do that, that's a wish. It's not a goal. It's a wish. It's a dream. And you just don't turn around and you say to everybody, okay, our goal is to grow 10% a year. Everybody go do it. You have to start with the big broad roadmap from the top and start refining it as it goes through the process, as it goes through the tactical, and as it gets into the operational. Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said basically you're going to get what you reward. So if you want to achieve the goals and reflect the values of your mission statement, then everything has to be aligned all the way through the company. And that's the important part. You will get exactly what you reward. I promise. People will figure it out. And so you want to make sure that you don't get that kind of dysfunctional goal setting and reward process. So as we summarize it, we go strategic to tactical to operational, and you see how that fits in. The last thing I want to talk about real quickly is that the hard part is actually implementing it. The hard part of any plan is saying, okay, we have it all written. We're seeing this with distribution of the vaccine right now. Every state, the federal government gave every state a template, and then by the end of October, every state had a detailed plan for distribution. They ran. I have a link for it somewhere, and that has all the plans linked, and they ran anywhere from maybe 55 pages long to 95 pages long. A lot of detail in there about how they were going to go about distributing the vaccine. Yet, when we turn around and we look from one state to the next, some states are doing really well with it, and some states are tripping all over themselves, because implementing is the hard part, and that requires project management skills. And that's really one of the really important things. And if you can develop your project management skills, you will be a tremendously valuable employee. So, this is kind of the standard project management model. This is the 7-phase, this is what the professional project manager certification includes and incorporates. So you have all of these steps. The only problem with this is really, really good. And this works well for, a major implementation. I'm going to implement a bunch of automation in my, on my production line. It works well for construction projects. Anything like that. This kind of structure is really good. The problem is if you're starting from scratch, if you're at a company that doesn't do it very well, that has never tried to put this kind of structure on implementing this strategy, that this is going to be too much. It's going to be overwhelming. There's a lot of documentation that's involved. And it's just too easy to get behind and to have, changes to the specs and everything in there. And so what I do is I've done this at a couple of companies where they were nowhere, that they had no idea of how to manage a project. And I said, okay, I'm going to give you my simple 3-phase project management approach. We're going to define it. We're going to define what the project is. We're going to get all the information that we need to know. I mean, that's really it. Is you're going to just put into a spreadsheet. What all do I need to know? And you can get almost everything. You might think of some other things along the way, but you get it defined as much as you can. Then you do it. Then you execute. And then afterwards, you have to manage it. And what you're really doing at this point is when you say manage it, you're saying, how do I know we're okay once we're up and running? And what attention does it need, especially early on, to make sure that things don't fall apart? And I can give you an example. I probably should have, let's see. Let me do this. Copy the link. I'll go here, paste and go. Yeah, so here's one. This was early on at Ivy Tech, and I said, how are we going to make this work? How are we going to get supply chain management moving? So this was defined, and this was all the things I needed to know. And you notice I build in some formatting when things are late, but you put in the start date and how long is it going to take to complete. That calculates the completion date, and then I put in the actual. So you're constantly tracking. And you can see a few things here with no completion date in it because I wanted to be able to show you that. So this is one of my samples. The do then is to take all of that and say, okay, well, we have to do this. I never did fill this all in. Or I actually did put I didn't put in completion dates in this. I probably should go fill this out. And then the manage wasn't even defined yet. But the idea there is that it's real easy, it's real easy to put this in a format where everybody understands it. And you can put your notes and you can put the curriculum, link to curricula and things like that. But the important part of it is that you just have to have some structure. You have to have your roadmap to follow, because if you don't have a roadmap, then you're never going to get there. You're going to forget too much. There's just no way. And then I just want to make a mention that there is another approach to project management called Agile. And Agile is basically, it's breaking all of your projects into small bits. It's usually used for software development. And what you're doing is a lot of prototyping. You deliver things every 2 weeks. You roll out the next change, and you have a grand vision about what you're trying to accomplish, but you're only working on the steps in between. And you may find that, you roll out a change and you find out that doesn't quite meet the need. And as a result, you have to back up and you have to do it over again. So fixing that becomes your next 2 weeks rather than moving to the next step. And that's considered okay in the Agile world. That works for you, because what the alternative is, if you develop something as a 6-month project and you get to the end of 6 months and you find out that parts of it don't meet the mark, you've wasted a lot of effort. This way, you're not wasting. You're constantly rolling out new. This is the kind of thing that can work really, really well in operations if you're a continuous improvement company. And if you're used to doing things in small bites and using that plan, do, check, act cycle that we've discussed. And if you're able to do that, then Agile, Agile is a project management methodology that can work well for you as well. Now, let's contrast this with building a house. You pretty much have to know what the end product is going to look like. So you're not going to build a house and say, well, do you like that floor plan? No. Okay, well, we'll back it out then. So we only built it, we only built one frame. You use what's appropriate to the situation. So that's it. That's a long day, but that's a lot of business and strategy. So to set us up for Thursday's class, when we're going to talk about supply chain strategy. Do you have any questions?
No. I'm good.
Okay, well, I am going to stop the recording.